Holy shit. It's True Crime Tuesday. Oh, I love Tuesdays. Folks, tonight we've got a case that's going to mess with your mind. And the more you think about it, the more crazier you will go. It's one of the most unsolved, bizarre cases of all time. It's Russia's original declassified X-file. It's something that's going to mess with you. And you're not going to feel safe at the end of the show. I'm John. I'm an active 911 dispatcher in the field. Joining me, as always, is my ex-wife. Ooh, hate this.
Ugh.
Yeah. Kendra Drama, a former sheriff's deputy somewhere down in sunny South Wang, Florida. Kendra spent many years investigating strange crimes, hiking in the mountains of Florida, coming across bodies, using levels on them and tapes and taking strange pictures. And this is going to be an excellent case tonight. I can't wait to get into it. I'm actually super excited because this case is 70 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many podcasts about this case, but I am excited to announce that we have solved it.
We did, question mark.
Yes, it's solved, question mark.
So as you were saying, this one is a head scratcher. It's a mystery. It's unsolved. And there's a lot of weird, just shit going on with it, to be quite frank.
This is the Dyatlov Pass incident is what we're talking about. It's an incident which occurred in the Ural Mountains, which are the mountains that are separate Russia from Siberia. And so they separate Asia from the rest of Russia. And this occurred between February 1 and 2, 1959, under bizarre circumstances. So you had a group of 10 people. They're going to set out, and these are all young people. The oldest one there was like my age, and he didn't fit in with the rest of them. He was a World War II vet, kind of a different guy. But the rest of these guys are kind of like academics. Like they all just got out of college, or they're in college, or they're young professionals. And they're all going to set out and kind of do a cross-country skiing trip through the mountains. And in February, which is no small feat, and just going up a mountain, this is a test of endurance and various other things. But this is not, it doesn't end up turning out the way you think. One of the original 10, at one point, he gets a touch of, what would you call it? Rheumatoid arthritis, or his bones hurt. Sciatica. He's got some kind of pain in his back. So he turns around and he decides that he's going to go back to the last town that they went through. And the 9 of them decide that they're going to continue on. So it's named the Dyatlov Pass after one of the guys, I believe it was Igor Dyatlov, that went on this expedition. Now, we need to pause because there's 9 people that we're going to be talking about. A lot of them have complicated names. 3 of them are named Yuri because Yuri is like Scott in Russia. So like 20% of all men are named Scott in the United States, and 30% of all hikers on this trip are named Yuri, 30%. So we have to be kind of careful about that. And so if we get to the end, and if you're a Dyatlov Pass incident expert, we did the best we could to keep everybody straight, but there's a lot of people involved, and everybody kind of has a different fate, and there's a lot of moving pieces in this. And so we did the best we can. I'm going to say right now, Kendra, that we will probably be revisiting this case with more information and more details in the future. Maybe I'll do that one by myself if you're not down for that. I'm always ready to do more podcasts.
Trying to get rid of me already. Good Lord.
I would never do that. I hope this whole thing has actually been a scheme to did you ever see The Parent Trap, where the kids try to get the parents to remarry?
Of course.
That's what this podcast is.
You're parent trapping yourself?
I'm trying to get you to remember why you fell in love with me in the first place. Is it working?
I'll get back to you on that.
I'm not doing a good job is the problem. But the scheme is well conceived because you have to see me every week, right? Like, this is not bad for two divorced people who are forced to spend time together. This isn't a bad scheme. I just need to like commit harder. So it's possible that we might do another episode on the Dyatlov Pass incident. But this is one of the all-time great mysteries of in the history of mysterious events. So you get the 9 people go out there. They send word of when they can expect to be back, but this is one of those things where they're like, hey, we're going to be back, like by February 11th or whatever it was, whatever the date was. So it's like, that's 2 weeks from now is when they say they're going to be back. So when they're overdue, people just think, oh, they got diverted or whatever. They get left out there a long time before anyone starts looking for them. Final piece before I let Kendra to kick it off. In 1959, there are no weather reports because there are no satellites that do weather data. Like, the first satellite was launched by Russia in 1957. It was called Sputnik. It was the size of a basketball, and all it did was beep. So at that point, that was like what our satellites did, is they just emitted tones, and they weren't taking pictures of the way that the atmosphere works. When you watch the news, there was no weather section. So when these guys set out and they go on this trek across the mountains, they have no idea what they could encounter, and bad weather is certainly a part of that. And how bad was the weather is one of the theories that we have to talk about. But Kendra, I'll let you start telling the case.
Okay, so like you said, this group of college kids and the 138-year-old went on this trip. One of them did stick behind at a village that they came through because of a sciatic issue. And there's not a whole lot of information about the actual trip because none of them survived. But like you said, they were late or didn't show up or didn't get to their destination when they said they were going to, and their family members gave them a certain amount of time because things can happen. And
we do have some information because they were journaling. They were keeping a little newspaper,
taking pictures.
They were taking pictures. I'm going to show you some pictures of before things went wrong, and maybe a couple pictures of after. So this is kind of like what it's like for them cross-country skiing up here. You could see that this is a photo where they're cross-country skiing through the mountains. What's the weather like in this photo? Unless they live where I do, where you're just in a gray fog, it doesn't look great. But spirits were high. You can see that these are happy people. They're having a good time. Like this guy here, he's like playing in the snow. He doesn't care that it's cold. This is normal for him. Others, laughing, playing. These are like, even though their faces are kind of serious, these are young people playing around, having a good time. These are friends on this expedition. That
looks cold.
It looks that doesn't look that bad to me, but I'm used to it.
Well,
this one's kind of a weirder photo, but it's you have to remember something. This looks strange, but back then, like, you're using film and you're using exposures and you're using lenses, right? You're using a big camera. It's not like today where you take a digital camera and as soon as a picture's good, you snap it. Back then, you like did the best you could, and if something was out of focus, like, you didn't find out about it until you got the pictures developed. Frankly, Kendra, it was like that for me in high school. Like, my high school graduation, there's pictures I took that day with like a disposable camera, which was like something you could buy at a store, and it was a camera, and you took pictures and then you dropped it off at a man at a company, and then he would wait a week, and then you would get the pictures back and find out if they were good. That happened within my lifetime. So this is 1959. You could see that this is like, pretty intense, but you got lots of friends doing this. And so it's a kind of cool ski trip by young people who are kind of putting themselves to the test. A couple of these guys were trying to like get certification as like, grade 3 certifications for climbing. Like, there's certain levels of like expertise. And all of these guys who are going have some expertise, right? These are not idiots, taking off into the wilderness and getting themselves killed. These are like some mid-level grade experienced guys. And then, in order to, once they complete this trek, then they'll be, considered a grade 3, which is a level higher. So you already have some people out there that know what they're doing. The other thing that's interesting about this, you have a group of 9 people. a lot of times when we're talking about people who die of exposure, people that get confused, if you're in a group of like 2 people or 3 people, or you're by yourself, like you're very likely to get disoriented, you're likely to get lost. We've got 9 people here that can kind of keep each other grounded, can do good decision making, that can help each other. Like no one's like forgetting to drink water and getting, disoriented or
Right.
whatever, or like slipping and falling in a creek and then like he doesn't know where he is. Like we have 9 people here. Like this is a pretty robust group. They know what they're doing. And the way that it turned out, it should have ended this way, Kendra.
Yeah, I will say that the mountain and the area that they were hiking in was called, I'm not going to pronounce the Russian name for it, but it translates to Death Mountain. And
What I understood was that it was called Silent Pass.
Okay, so there are a couple of different names for this area because there are an indigenous people that are in the area, and they
Who knew that Russians had Indians? I didn't know that.
Yes, they have Russian Native Americans.
Russian Native Americans in the area. They're called the Mansi people, but we're gonna from now on we're going to call them the Native Americans, just to
from Russia.
Muddy the water and show that we're stupid. But they're the indigenous people, and they're kind of an autonomous group, meaning they're separate from the government, and they live kind of out in that region where those mountains are, and they're just the people that were out there long before, like the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation and the country we now know as Russia formed. It's just the ancient peoples of that land.
Yes. And they so affectionately named the area Death Mountain or Silent Pass. And then another name was literally translated to basically like, don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
But they went there. And like you said,
they went there.
They went there.
Kendra, if there was a place in the United States that you would call "Don't go there," where would that be?
Anywhere south of Central Florida.
I would say probably the Everglades. Yeah, I would not want to be out there. I don't like snakes. I don't like gators. Like, you ever wonder why Kendra and I are divorced and she lives in Florida? She went there because she knows it's the place I don't want to be. She knows that I will not go down there. I won't go down there and make an appeal for her to take me back because, like, I'm worried that I'm going to walk down the street to her house and, like, there's just going to be a gator there and he'll eat me. So,
yes,
man, she's surrounded herself by like a fortress of nature around her.
Yes, crackheads and snakes and gators and all kinds of stuff.
But Native American.
So after this group is missing for a while, investigators go out. It takes them a long time to get there because remember, I want to say it was like they were hiking some, I don't know what the conversion is, so forgive me, but I think it was like 3,500 kilometers or something like that. It was a very long trip.
It's over 10,000 miles.
Yes.
No, it's not even close. Keep going.
No. So it takes them a while to get out there to find them in the first place, but they do finally find at least signs of a camp. They find a tent. And this tent was covered in snow. It was at the bottom of a slope, which is noted to be a little unusual considering the experience of these hikers because it's kind of a bad place to be strategically. The cold air goes down that way, and
there were other places.
The possibility of avalanche, yes.
There are places for better cover. Something else that's very important when you talk about avalanche, and we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
They say the pitch of the ground was about 15 degrees. It's 15 degrees because of the snow that's on it. So the snow's there, but underneath it, the ground, the bedrock layer is actually 30 degrees, which is quite a steep grade to be camping on. I mean, it's not that you can't make it work, but when you think that you're on a relatively flat plain, a place to camp at 15 degrees, but underneath it is 30, like that's quite a bit more steep. And so you could see where like the snow might break out from underneath you. Now, there was not an avalanche of snow beneath where they camped because that would have swept them away. there was also not a huge avalanche of snow above them, because then we would have never found them, right? Like they would have just been buried under snow. So
Right.
we can go ahead and rule out what you would call like a massive classic avalanche from burying them in their campsite, because especially in 1959 with limited availability of helicopters, there's no chance we would find them.
Yes. And another unusual thing about the tent is that they found basically traces of undisturbed like presence of people. So undisturbed presence of people, that doesn't make any sense.
Essentially, there's a lot that doesn't make sense. Just stick to it.
Just going with the theme. So essentially they found like boots, prepared food, like somebody had just up and left this tent. And again, there's 9 people in this group and they're nowhere near this tent. Another odd thing is the tent had signs that it had been cut.
From the
like
inside?
They were trying to escape, but it was from the inside of the tent, not from the outside, like a bear or some attacker trying to get in. So the scene also had a set of footprints that led in kind of like a single file order. And the footprints indicated to the investigators that some of them weren't wearing shoes, some of them had one shoe on, etc. A couple, I want to say maybe a couple hundred yards from the tent, they locate 2 bodies. And these bodies were found at a wood line of cedar trees. Those bodies were the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivanishchenko.
Here's something interesting that we need to address. They left their tents without much clothes on. With as cold as it is, there's no reason why they should ever be without clothes, because as cold as it is, you're going to keep your clothes on all the time. I know this because like a matter of weeks ago, it was about as cold here as it was probably up there. Like with the wind chill, very, 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 very fucking cold.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason for them to go into their tents and undress at any point. Now, people that know about hypothermia know about paradoxical undressing. Basically, your hypothalamus and your brain gets all wonky. And as you're freezing to death, your hypothalamus says, hey, you're heating up. And I don't know if it's a coping mechanism or just like a natural way of, the most sickest joke on earth. But you start thinking that you're hot. So you start taking off your clothes, which is very, very, very bad for you. The problem is that these guys would have all understood hypothermia. They would have never taken it off. And so they were found in conditions of really not having any clothes on.
Yeah.
And these guys, they would have understood that. So it's very strange that the thing is about the paradoxical undressing, it's not like it happens in 100% of hypothermia cases. So you have 9 people out there, and again, you have group decision making and things like this. Since it's not something that happens in every single case of hypothermia, there's no reason why as many people as there are taking off clothes. And they all left the camp. And so if there was some sort of an emergency, the thing you're going to want to do is to stay together, not separate. Keep your clothes on for warmth. Even if like there was some sort of emergency and they had to bail out of the tent in a hurry. I know one of the theories is particularly because one of the members of the expedition had massive injuries that were described as being similar to being hit by a car.
Yeah.
His injuries were so extensive that it was like the same thing as, he had been hit by a car moving at high speed.
Right.
And so like if he had massive hemorrhages in his heart and all this, which is something that, how does that even happen to you? Something heavy would have to fall on you, I imagine. Or who that's part of the mystery, is we don't understand why he had like broken ribs and massive hemorrhage and soft tissue damage.
Yeah, there's a lot of mysterious occurrences with these injuries and the way these bodies were found. And I'm going to go through like kind of in succession of how the bodies were found and what the injuries were, but it's very bizarre and it doesn't make any sense at all. The first 2, like you said, were found shoeless and in their underwear. And they had burns from what appeared to be some sort of fire. They tried to make a fire, but they also found like branches that were torn on these trees, like they were trying to climb up the trees. One of them had missing flesh from the tops of his hands, and those pieces of flesh were found in his mouth. There was
like
skin.
he bit his hand.
Yes, there was skin and blood in the tree bark of these trees. So it's kind of, the scene is now like they were in a panic over something, and they were, you know, doing that thing that sometimes, I mean, there's different reactions to panic. This clearly looked like they were just kind of running in circles, not really knowing what the hell to do. Whatever emergency was happening, we don't know, but it's very bizarre. So they found 3 more bodies after that, and those are the bodies of Zenaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin, and Igor Dyatlov, which was the guide, right? They were found in between the tent and the cedar trees, and they theorized that everybody went to the trees, and these 3 tried to make their way back to the tent because of how they found them, I guess. Their injuries were pretty bad too. Zenaida had bruising on her side in the shape of a baton, like she'd been beaten with something. And Rustem Slobodin had head injuries that were so severe that it could only be consistent with being dropped on your head multiple times.
He had pieces of his skull deeply embedded in his brain.
Yes.
I want to say something real quick, because the quick answer to all of this is that they were accosted by a violent force. First of all, they are nowhere near town. There's 9 of them, so they would have to be massively outnumbered for something sort of like this to happen. There's no trace of other people being up on the mountain. Mm-hmm. Some people say, well, it was the local indigenous people who attacked them for invading their lands. They checked with the Mansi people. The Mansis are like, yeah, it's not particularly sacred, you know. And then just like just blaming them because they're the only ones there is not, it's not legally compelling. It's not something that we would actually do. I mean, they might be suspects, but we have no other evidence to suggest that it's them.
Right.
So 4 of them remain missing from the campsite. They found the campsite, they found the tent, but 4 of them were still gone. And then a few months go by. In May, one of these Mansi guys is out there with a dog, and he knows that these guys are missing, right? Like I said, the Soviet government's out there and they're looking for people.
Yeah.
And they find the remains of a snow den in the woods, some 250 feet from a tree. There was a floor of branches that were deep down in this hole, like if you were trying to make a makeshift shelter.
Yeah.
There are pieces of tattered clothing strewn all about, black cotton sweatpants that had a leg cut off, like the leg of the sweatpants cut off, which makes you wonder, were they repurposing clothing? You would still think that sweatpants would be best left on. The left half of a woman's sweater. Once they got there, they started using avalanche probes, which are basically long sticks around the den, and they started digging around in the snow. They came up with a piece of flesh. So they excavated the area. They found these 4 other people lying together in a rocky stream bed. They had been under at least 10 feet of snow. So it's sort of amazing that they were found at all. So autopsies found incredible injuries to 3 of these guys. There's a guy named Tybalt Brignol. I think that was his hyphenated last name. He was the one that had, I believe he was actually the one that had the skull fracture. Zolotroyev and Dubina had crushed chests with multiple broken ribs. They had hemorrhages in his right ventricle. This is the guy I was talking about that had the damage to his vehicle that was like he'd been hit by a car at high speed. He's under 10 feet of snow. When you die in an avalanche, you die of suffocation, right? You're obviously, or you freeze to death, whichever one happens first, but it's probably suffocation. So you're not going to see like hemorrhaging in your heart, that deep tissue damage. None of them had external penetrating wounds, like they weren't stabbed or shot or anything like that. Zolotaryov was missing his eyes, which if you're under 10 feet of snow, how is predation happening?
Yes.
Right? You can't say, well, the birds got at it because he's under 10 feet of snow. And also the birds are not going to be there in the wintertime. So that's problematic. And I know that that doesn't mean that there aren't animals up there, but you know, there's certain animals that are going to go after the eyes first because it's soft tissue.
Yeah.
But up there, we're talking about like what? Wolverines, lynx, bears. Like they're not going to just eat the eyes, right? Like they're going to go for organs, particularly bigger animals like bears. They know that like the nutrient dense part of a carcass to eat is the organs. Dubina was missing his eyes, his tongue, and part of the upper lip. Some of the victims were wearing clothes that were taken off or cut off of the bodies of others. So people are wearing clothes that belong to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you want to talk about like the weirdest thing with the clothes, or do you want to save that?
I want to save that because I think that ties into some of the theories, which we're about to get into. I just wanted to make a couple more comments about Dubinina's condition. They found, we said her eyes, tongue, and lip were gone, essentially. And the tongue part is interesting because they found a significant amount of blood in her stomach during autopsy, which would indicate that she was alive when her tongue was removed, because she was bleeding profusely. Obviously, if you get your tongue ripped out, you're going to be bleeding profusely, and it's all going to drain into your stomach. And the chest cavity injuries also, like you said, there's no penetrating wounds, but there was also no soft tissue damage. And it also, in a couple of other reports, they said that the bodies were manipulated, was the word that they used, post-mortem, because the livor mortis did not match their positioning. And livor mortis, if you don't know, is
Lividity.
pooling of blood.
Yeah.
It's blood pooling. So if you're deceased and you lay down for a while on your arm, you're going to have bruising all over your arm. It's
the pressure's out of your circulatory system, so gravity just takes over.
Yes.
All the blood just goes down to the bottom of where you are. So you can tell what position someone is laying down in by that blood. So what happens to blood after you're dead for a long time? Well, it kind of congeals and kind of turns into like harder matter. It's not like you could pick up somebody, and if they've been laying on their back and all their blood is pooled to the bottom, you can't like turn them over and then the blood's going to drain down through their circulatory system, which is collapsed and decomposing. It's not going to run back to their stomach. So you can look at a body, see where the blood's pooled, and you can just clearly see what position that they were laying in. So when these bodies are recovered, they're seeing signs of lividity that don't correspond to gravity, meaning they were dumped here long after they were dead, but before the 10 feet of snow arrived.
Yeah, it's very mysterious, to say the least.
I want to talk about the tent a little bit. As you saw in that photo, it was partially collapsed, largely buried in snow, which we know that, by the time they recovered the tent, this was long before they found the other 4 bodies. The tent had been slashed in several places. Like we said, somebody was inside trying to get out. Everything else inside was neat and orderly, though. Like they were just, bedding down for the night. All their boots, their axes, their other equipment were arranged on either side of the door. Food was laid out, like you said. Their cameras, their journals. I believe that they found one of the cameras set up on a tripod, like it had been used within some time frame right before whatever the incident was. Like they were taking pictures. In fact, I have the last picture. It's called It's called Exposure 33, and it's something that only adds to the bizarre quality of this. But they did find the footprints of 8 or 9 people walking, not running, towards the tree line. That's something you can tell with footprints just based on the angle and how things are. All the prints were from stocking feet, one even barefoot. So at no point did they walk away from their tents wearing shoes. So at some point they're in their tents. One person is barefoot, which again you would not do if it's this cold. I'm sleeping with my boots on.
Yeah.
They before they had a chance to be cold, they're still in their tents. They took off their boots at least and other articles of clothing, and then they started walking towards the tree line in their socks and or bare feet. You could see the toe marks. One of the searchers testified. Um, the party followed the prince. The search party followed the prince downhill, 600 to 700 yards, which is quite a ways to walk in the snow, without shoes or on. And then they vanished in the tree line. I think that was the 4 people who were eventually, that we just discussed, that were found under the 10 feet of snow. I don't know what's next in this bizarre case.
Really, those are the facts of the case, and then we have the theories that we can get into, because that's really all there is to this case, is facts and then theories, because we have nothing. And the camera, or there were a couple of cameras found, but they didn't allegedly get many pictures or documentation off of it, or the journals, because the journals were gone and the cameras were damaged. But that kind of goes into one of the theories, that it's some sort of government conspiracy. It's a cover-up.
A couple more things, just because there's so much.
There's a lot.
Medical examiner found even more weird stuff, like blackened fingers, 3rd-degree burns on a shin and foot. So these people are freezing to death, but they're also like putting their hands and legs in the fire.
Yeah.
There was a guy, like I said, he was missing a chunk of flesh from his hand, and he still had it inside his mouth when his body was found. So like he bit off a piece of flesh from his own hand, didn't chew or swallow it or spit it out before he died. It was still in his mouth. Doroshenko's body had been burned. He had burned hair on one side of his head and a charred sock, like his foot had been in the fire. All of these bodies that were still at the campsite, they were covered in bruises, abrasions, scratches, cuts. 5th body, this one being Slobodin, who was discovered subsequent to the initial 4 at the campsite, but he was somewhere near the campsite. He had a minor fracture of his skull, so it's like he had also had head injuries, but he was not part of the second group that was found later in the den. So this was all being treated as a homicide. As you can imagine, this is all death by suspicious violence. And then there's this guy. He's sort of the Russian Fox Mulder. His name's Lev Ivanov.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing they did was toxicology reports. Took witness testimony, diagrammed everything. They took maps, gathered evidence. The tent and its contents were taken out of there on a helicopter, set up again inside a police station so that they could kind of like just look at the scene and like review it, kind of put it back together and think about it, because it was definitely a puzzle. And you don't want to stay out there on the mountain and try to like solve this, because, you know, eventually at some point you've just got to get out of there. And that's when they noticed, when they had it set up inside the station, that they actually had a seamstress who noted the cuts came from the inside. So there's a way that you could tell that it was someone who was trying to get out of the tent. Something about that's interesting too. Right now, in our age, when we think about going camping, the tents that we get are usually like made out of like a synthetic cloth, like nylon or whatever. They're very thin. You have to remember, these guys are way up in the mountains. They're in between Russia and Siberia, one of the coldest places on earth. It's very, very cold. Their tents that they're carrying, and in 1959, are going to be like made out of canvas. They're going to be made out of some heavy material. So the idea that you're slashing out of that rather than just leaving through the actual opening in the tent is very, very bizarre. And you know, what's the explanation for that? Even if like one of the theories is that like a slab avalanche came down and you know, somebody inside the tent was hurt, or they were surprised, or they had to get out of there in a hurry. Why would they slash out of it? Or suppose that they were accosted by a hostile force. Why, even if they were ordered to come out of the tent and like they were changing clothes or something, why would they slash out? You know, I'm trying to figure out the situation in which you have someone inside a tent that could easily leave a tent who still decides to cut his way out. It just makes no sense. So they also, like we said, they fled into the night, a howling blizzard, 20 below temperatures. They don't have socks or shoes on. These guys are not novices. They know that This is going to lead to them dying and dying quickly, that they don't have a chance. So it's just super bizarre. Did you want to touch on the last piece about the clothing? I would like for you to talk about that.
I do want to talk about that. I do also want to discuss what theories you think this could possibly explain.
I don't have a fucking clue. She asked me before the show. She's like, "What do you think it was?" I'm like, "How the hell should I know? I don't know."
There's a couple of different ones that honestly make the most sense to me, because the scene screams like hysteria. They were out of their minds. Something they were like, it's like when a group of cats all freak out and they just scatter and they go crazy and they're bouncing off the walls and they're flying around. That's what I imagine.
But all at once, you're going to tell me they had an explosion of insanity or hysteria all at once, caused by what?
Well,
what affected all 9 of them at the same time?
There's 2 theories that have been proposed for that to happen. One of them is a natural phenomenon called Kármán vortex, which is when a strong wind hits a stationary object at a certain angle. And what happens is it creates like wind gusts or little vortexes, little tornadoes that kind of like screw with your inner ear, essentially, or it creates this low level vibration. And the inner ear issues, it can create this panic. It can create like not hallucinations, but like a hysteria. It's almost like a extreme fight or flight, and it can come out of nowhere because it's almost undetectable. You can't hear.
It's not something you can hear with your actual ear. It's actually
correct.
These are vibrations that are extremely low frequency. Mm-hmm. So your nervous system could detect them because you have a tympanic nerve, right? Your eardrum can detect vibrations, but your brain can't translate that into something that's audible because that's just not in the range of sounds that the human brain can detect and interpret as sounds. These vibrations still exist, however, and they can still have an effect on your nervous system. So this is also called infrasound. The thing about infrasound that's troubling is that there's no scientific proof that it exists. This sounds funny, but I remember on the Mythbusters, they investigated the idea of a brown note, like that there's a certain note that can affect your sympathetic nervous system that could cause you to lose control of your bowels. You know, like that you could go low enough. The idea is that you're at a concert or something and the bassist goes nuts and he turns all the way up to 11 and hits just that lowest G possible. And all of a sudden you're shitting your shorts. So the idea of infrasound is that somehow your nervous system is being affected by these extremely low frequency waves. There's no evidence to suggest that it exists. There's people talk about it on websites. It's kind of the stuff of lore. The problem I have with it is that we have to have some way of explaining it in physics in terms of wind and the percussive element of going against the side of the mountain or whatever. Where does extremely low frequency sound exist in nature? Not in a lot of places. All the places where you can find extremely low frequency stuff is usually in electromagnetic waves, like being produced by an antenna, which is sometimes used in communications. And there's a whole other school of thought of that the extremely low frequency transmissions that are used by clandestine sources, a way of transmitting radio waves that are in lower bands than what most radios can pick up. Like you would need a special radio to pick up this band. Radio waves being used by clandestine services or the government. God knows the Soviet government does not care about its people at all. Even to this day, like Vladimir Putin, when there was a hostage incident in a movie theater, he sent in the police and just killed everybody. He gassed everybody. I don't know if you're aware of that incident, Kendra. So that's the new good Russia. So the old bad Russia, who the hell knows if something like that happened. That's one of the theories, is that somehow Russian technology came into it. I want to show you. I want to show you the last photo that was found on the camera frame. What are we looking at here, Kendra?
These are, if I'm correct in this photo. These are orbs in the sky, and what those orbs are parachute mines, essentially. So what happens is they drop these mines out of the sky, the government, and they explode before they hit the ground, and it causes these extreme percussions to basically knock out whatever's around it. It's not the actual explosion necessarily that kills you. It's the shock waves that come from it, which is used to explain the chest crushing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been,
only got one of them is the weird thing. You'd think
yeah.
an explosion like that with sufficient force to cause that damage, it would get everybody because they're all together. It's like throwing a grenade into a body of water, right? It's going to kill all the fish because the density there. This is different because we're still talking about a concussive explosion in the air. And again, like I would understand maybe if like a grenade was set off near him and he was in a confined space or in the water, I could understand something like that happening, but they're all intense, right? Like they're at a campsite and only one of them has the injuries of someone being hit by a car. So I don't understand how concussive force could have caused that. And then and we don't have complete records because this was classified from 1959 until the Soviet Russia collapsed. And then these documents were declassified after the fall of the Soviet Union. So when the Russians got their hands on this case, they buried it. The guy that was investigating it, not to keep trampling all over you.
It's fine.
But he was, when he started putting things together and questioning what was going on with the government's involvement, he was told basically to drop the case. Members of the KGB were attending the funerals of these guys and seeing who showed up.
Yeah.
So the KGB is, this Russian secret police. They are not the Russian CIA because it is not the job of the KGB to operate internationally. They operate domestically. So if what we have is people being killed by the Mansi people, bad winds, infrasound, what is the interest of the Russian secret police in these people's funerals?
Well, yeah, and that's I think part of the military KGB thing, the cover-ups theory, is also that a couple of these people had some intel, or they were working for a facility where they knew information they weren't supposed to, and that the KGB essentially followed them and completely destroyed them. And like you said, they're going to scout out who is associated with them. How are they going to stifle XYZ, right? And it's an interesting theory. It's plausible. But like you said, there's 9 people. They would have had to really outnumber these people. And there's no one theory that explains everything that happened.
It still doesn't explain it because if the KGB thought, like, say this guy, it was Igor Dyatlov, right? He worked at the Mayak nuclear complex, I believe. This happened in 2 years before. This was south of Sverdlovsk. There was an incident there where there was an explosion where they had a radioactive plume of some 200 miles. Later, it was called the East Urals radioactive trace because of all this fissile material that exploded. A lot of people died. A lot of people got sick. So we all know, like the Russians, with the Soviet Union's history of dealing with troubling matters of embarrassing matters of nuclear problems, like Chernobyl. Like they wanted to deny that Chernobyl even happened. Chernobyl was this nuclear reactor plant that essentially melted down. They lost control of the reaction. To this day, the Chernobyl area is not inhabitable. I don't know if you remember this, Kendra. You're a little bit young for this, and this is something where we kind of just forget that it happened. But I think it was in 99 or 2000. The Soviet Navy, and I should say the Russian Navy, because by 99 it was the Russian Federation. They had a submarine called the Kursk that they lost contact with. The Kursk was lost with all hands, and this is massively embarrassing to the Russian Navy. The Russians tried to cover up that they lost a submarine. So the Russians are constantly trying to cover things up. So why do I mention that? So this guy worked at the Mayak nuclear complex. He was a nuclear engineer. So first of all, he might have access to certain secrets of the Soviet Union. You got to remember, this is 1959. It's the height of the Cold War. By now, the Soviets already have the H-bomb, but that doesn't mean that they're resting on their laurels. They're constantly developing new ways to explore their nuclear program. Does he know anything? He knows about this accident. He was involved in the cleanup of it. And so the nuclear stuff leads us to our final thing about the bodies. 2 of them were found with radioactive clothes, just 2 of them. And not their bodies, not their tissue, right? When you're exposed to high levels of radiation, you get burns on your skin. If it's acute radiation, you get deep tissue damage, because what radiation is essentially is free radicals, right? You have electrons that are blown apart during when you're splitting the atom. These atoms come apart, and these electrons and subatomic particles radiate outward. That's why it's called radiation. These particles fly through your body because they're so small, but that doesn't mean that they don't do damage to you. These electrons, these free radicals, flying through your body. So if they're doing damage to you, they're flying all the way through. Like that's why you die of radiation, is because you're essentially having particles going through your body. Yes. It's only in the clothes. So it's not deep in their bodies. It's not on their skin. It's not in their bones. It's not in their organs. It's just on their clothes. So why are 2 of them wearing clothes that have radioactivity in them? So you also have to wonder this, Kendra. Looking at grievous trauma in some of these cases and bizarre behavior in others, why are any of these investigators going out there with a Geiger counter to begin with? Does that seem strange to you?
Yeah, because why would you, you're just going on a search and rescue mission initially. You don't know these people are dead or not. So your main goal is not to investigate a homicide at that point. Now, they found the other bodies months later, but I believe they found Dyatlov. They found him within the first initial searches. So it is a little suspicious. It's like someone, they kind of knew maybe what was going on already, and they needed to confirm that certain things were happening or certain people were present when whatever happened. And one of the ways that they could do that is to find radiation on some clothing, because obviously this guy, the thought process is, well, these are clothes that he owned when he was a part of the explosion, right? So that's one way that you could tell that this person is who maybe the hit was out for.
I don't believe it's a hit, because let's suppose it is. There's so many better ways to do this. Okay, so the one, being beaten with a baton, or having them all march out without clothes and having them die of exposure, but the trauma of some of them, and then some of them having escaped apparently from this overwhelming force. Some of them escaping and making it to the den. Very strange. Who bites off a piece of their own hand because they could tell from the teeth marks that he did it to himself? What's the situation where he's biting his own hand and then he's keeping that piece of flesh in his mouth? What's the situation where a woman's getting her tongue cut out? The burns, the lacerations, the abrasions, some of these are signs of possible torture, but it wasn't on all of them. And what would be the reason for torturing them? You don't need to torture them. They're up there. Let's face it, gang. If you're just trying to silence an enemy of the state, it's simpler to just go up there and blow them away. Tell them to all lay down in the snow. The Russians are very, very good at this. Not to impugn a whole nation, but I'm just saying historical Russia. They just line people up against the wall and shoot them. They're not going to make a big deal out of this. The people who are sent up there to kill them, if it did exist, they're going to go up there. They're going to costume. They're going to shoot them through the tent. Maybe they're not even going to interact with these people, and then hope that they're never found. If particularly these 4 bodies that are found under the snow, I mean, you could dispose of these people very easily out here in this environment, shoot them, and then just bury them, get rid of the evidence, take some evidence back with you if you're
Mhm.
actually up in the mountains. But not
Right.
only that, they would have had to have been tracked. So one of the people, one of the initial 10, he breaks off of the group and reverses course and goes back to the town. He doesn't encounter anybody. He died in like 97. And if he did know something, of course, if the Russians caught up with him and said don't say anything or something, or
Yeah.
um I guess that's possible. But I mean, like,
It feels like it feels like there were like two phases of, if it was an attack, there were two phases of this attack. There was the initial like hit at the campsite. Maybe some of them escaped and they were trailed, and then they were subsequently tortured and murdered with these horrible, the tongue being ripped out and the chest wounds and all this stuff.
yeah, but
It
even the people who were found near the den, one of them had significant skull damage. So did they make it away, get to the den, and then the pursuing force eventually still found them and then still injured them and then took them down by the creek?
that's what it feels like. I mean, like we've said multiple times, the theories, there is no one theory that really makes perfect sense because there's too many variables in this. But if it was some sort of violent action or a violent force, it feels like it was done in phases. And
Mm-hmm.
because everything is so different, it's very strange. Very, very strange.
Here's the other thing too. So, like, suppose what you have up there is you just have, let's call it a gang, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because like that, let's call it that. So you have different personalities there. One of them's like a real sadist motherfucker, and he likes to burn people and cut out their tongues and whatever else. That does not resemble a government agency going out there to accomplish a task. Like I said,
Right.
if it's just about executions or stopping someone, you have someone who's massively out of control if he's causing injuries enough to someone that they have injuries consistent with being hit by a car. And by the way, they don't
Mm-hmm.
have a car up in the mountains in 1959, so we know it's not a car. But that's how bad his trauma is. So, like, what caused the injuries? And so if you're in charge, you're not going to let somebody go apeshit on people. The only like reason why you would be torturing people is trying to get information out of them. What do these people know? They don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd have to get deep biographies on all these people, but the only one who seems to have any interest at all to the state is Igor Dyatlov, because he worked at that one nuclear plant. But if they wanted to get rid of him, why would they go up into the mountains and attack him with 8 other people? Again, just wherever he lived, murders still happen in Russia. It would be easy to just have somebody go over and hit him. And if it was an official hit by the state, then when the KGB investigates it, it's there's nothing there. There's essentially no criminal case to investigate.
Right.
My point being, just in summation, is that if this was a hit job by the government, this is the stupidest, craziest, biggest waste of time way to do it ever. And no one who is good at killing people and covering it up is going to do it this way, because it's a big fucking hassle. You have to try to get out of there alive when you're done. It's not just good enough that you go up there. Like I said, they fled from their tents in the midst of a blizzard. Right. If you're a bad guy, then you're also up there in the blizzard. So you're equally prepared. You're also a group. You're also expert climbers. You've also got tents, boots, everything that you need to survive up there too. So that's not the KGB doesn't have like expert, like, I don't know. Maybe they do have like expert mountain climbers or something. I don't know.
I'm sure they do, but they're not going to, like you said, they're not going to waste their time and effort. And they would just do a hit at his house or while he's on the way to work or doing something like that. I agree. And the theories are fun to talk about, but I don't believe that they were followed up there. I don't think that that's very plausible. I mean, it's plausible. It's not likely. And so it's just another, I don't know. It's very, very bizarre. Some of the other theories are, of course, aliens and cryptids. I mean, sure. Maybe.
One thing that's interesting with you saying that is that one of the investigators stated that the fatal injuries to 3 bodies could not have been caused by human beings. He said this because he didn't want the Mansi people to be just totally blamed for it. He said because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. So
people also point to an article that was written afterwards, and the headline basically translated to like, "From now on, we know the snowman is real," and people will cling to that and say it was a Yeti, but the snowman could be something else. It could be I don't know. It's the whole thing is very bizarre, and even though I know this case well and I've researched it, and even long before this podcast was a thing for me, I knew about the case, and it's just a head scratcher. In recent years, they've kind of explored the theory of a slab avalanche, right? It's not a full-blown avalanche. It's like the ground shifts and a slab of snow kind of slides on top of whatever. But even the people that are researching it are like, it's not that it couldn't happen, but it probably didn't. It's the only thing that really makes sense, quote unquote, but it's not likely. So there's still no real answer. And it's very odd.
The thing is like, to this day, the cover-up or the suspicious stuff even continues today. Like, even after the fall of the Soviet Union, you had Boris Yeltsin saying, boy, this sure is a strange case. And at one point, they even reopened the case, and they said, we're only going to like be investigating weather phenomenon. That's the only thing that we're willing to entertain in the case. Here's something that's very, very interesting. In 2018, so not that long ago, Zolotoryov's remains were exhumed after basically a Russian tabloid put pressure on the government to figure out what the hell happened to this guy. This is the guy with the massive damage that was caused by a car. So one of the experts said that his injury resembled a person who had been hit by a car. Here's the weird part. When they took DNA from him, it didn't reveal similarity to any DNA of any of this guy's living relatives. So who the hell is in that guy's grave? And where is the body that's recovered off of the mountain? Because when they exhumed the grave of the guy who supposedly died on the mountain, the body was somebody else.
Body double.
Well, essentially, they found a convenient dead person or unalived somebody and put it in the grave because the body was evidence of something that they knew that they couldn't safely bury because this case is so bizarre. At some point, then I don't know if they imagined 2018 or whatever, but that it could possibly be exhumed and that there was some sort of damning evidence in there that would explain what the hell happened.
Well, that wouldn't make sense. Never mind. I was going to propose something else, but that wouldn't make any sense. It's all very, I don't have any words because it's like, usually you can look at something and kind of put pieces together and make some sort of, draw your own conclusion. Right. And you and I are pretty good at that usually, but this one is odd because all of the plausible explanations are just so far-fetched that, I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
Even if you find one that covers 90% of it, then you can't explain the radiation. Then you can't explain why they're swapping clothes. You can't explain why this is cut. You can't explain why somebody's eyes were gone. You can't explain why a tongue was cut out. Like, you can't say that it was wind that did it. You can't say that it was a group of bad guys that did it, because what's the motive? How the hell did they get up there? How'd they get out?
Yeah.
This is the tomb of the 9 people who are lost up there. So, this is a creepy tomb. I don't like monuments with pictures on them. I don't know. That's just me. But there's
personal.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm imagining one of those people without their eyes, and I'm imagining one of them with their, their tongue cut out. And
oh, God. Yeah.
I don't like any kind of grievous injury, Kendra. That's why,
oh my God. Yeah, you're pretty bad with that.
I am. So, like, I don't know, folks, like, what are your theories? Like, I know that we're not the first podcast to cover this. If you have a theory about what happened in the Dyatlov Pass incident, I want you to email it to Kendra and we'll read it next week, or put it in a chat if you're watching on YouTube. Let us know if we missed something big, if there's some obvious thing, like, no idea. If like I'm like discounting the wildlife, or like maybe there was some kind of dispute, like you could say like maybe there was a conflict in the group, like there was some sort of jealousy, or like um, love triangle or something, or um, did these people all cause the injuries to each other somehow? Did they turn on each other? Again, even that doesn't make sense. Why were they all unclothed then? It seems like only half of them would be. But send it in an email to Kendra. We'll read it on the show. Otherwise, post in a comment below. Just bizarre stuff, Kendra, and it definitely bothers me. And I wish, I love this case, but like I'm going cross country skiing in the mountains tomorrow, and now I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
And you're flying out to Russia, and you have to leave in about 30 minutes. So
I have to get to the airport.
If you want to make it there in time to get murdered by the KGB.
Yeah, and if you think the KGB doesn't still exist, you're fucking kidding yourself, by the way. But this photo too, just there's something round about it that makes it look like I'm looking at I'm very close up at an object, a round object or something, and then like that's a glare of light. You got to remember, like if this picture was taken in the daytime, because we have no idea the time frame it was taken. It's actually very bright out there on the mountain. If it's a sunny day, there's snow everywhere, so it's like it should be easy to take pictures, which is a reason why a lot of these pictures are so gorgeous, is because it's so bright outside. Like anyone who knows anything about cameras, the way to take a good picture is to have just tons of light for your camera to capture. And so it's very bright out there. This picture's not as good, and you can tell that from just the fact that it's snowing. But these are normal. They're basically kids. They're younger than you and me, except for the one guy, the World War II vet or whatever, and that they all died, and they all died terribly. And it was just, I don't know. Bothered now.
It's very troublesome and disturbing because it's there's no answers. It's like
well, there was a cover up too. Like I said, the guy wasn't in the right grave.
Yeah, that's extremely suspicious and very Russian.
Yes, a very Russian mountain hike.
Yes.
I know. One other thing is that the Mansi people reported seeing lights in the sky, which are they some sort of weapons test or military test being conducted by the Soviets? And whatever was witnessed, did these hikers see some sort of experimental thing that wasn't supposed to be kept classified? If that's the case, now that it's 2024 and this was 1959, you can't keep anything. It can't keep a piece of technology that's worth a damn, that's worth killing over classified this long. Case in point, our B-2 bomber is declassified. Our stealth technology is largely declassified. There's still stuff that's classified that we don't know about. But I mean, like by now, as particularly since the Soviet Union has fallen, and this case has been declassified, this case is out in the open. All the Russian secrets, or a lot of them anyway, have been laid open for world history to know and to judge. What is it that was worth killing these people over? What was it that the Russians were working on? What would have been worth it? And not only that, but like you got to be kidding yourselves if you think that out in the middle of nowhere that they're, like suppose this is the Russian Area 51. How do they know that these hikers weren't even supposed to be here? They're on a mountain that they weren't supposed to be climbing over. They were on the wrong mountain. It wasn't that they were lost. They just went a different way. So it's not like they were ambushed. But this is 1959. You don't have electronic surveillance. You don't have any way of knowing there's someone on a mountain over there.
Yeah.
I just don't buy it for a second. So I have no explanation though.
I don't really either. I have, out of all of the theories, the only one that makes sense to me is some sort of they ran across some sort of testing of some sort with the infrasound, which we don't even know if it exists. But that's why it's so mysterious, because that's the only thing that would make sense. But it doesn't. We don't even know if it's real. So
you see, we can't even end the episode because there's no satisfying conclusion. I was listening to one episode today, and it really bothered me because they said all the classic podcast stuff. They said at the end of the day, these were real people, and it's okay to normalize their deaths. And they, you know, and they just go on and on. And like Occam's razor, simplest explanation is completely they set up all of these things that happen. They tell the truth of the incident, and then they, in order to end the podcast, I think they were trapped like we are because they couldn't get the hell out of there. They just started rationalizing everything away and saying, well, it was just this, it was just this, it was just this. I'm going to tell you this now. In the history of the world, there are things that lie at the edges of the bell curve. They happen on the fringe. They defy human detection. They defy our explanation. And to say that these things do not occur, or that they are normal or within a compelling natural force, like the lead investigator said was the cause of death, that they could not overcome a compelling natural force of some kind. You cannot discount this as normalizing their death to say what happened to them was within the realm of nature, because, like I said, things do happen that are outside of that. And on a long enough timeline, with enough evidence, with enough data samples of things that have happened throughout history, you will come across data sets such as these that are outliers that cannot be explained or normalized, and I will not do that. Something happened to them that defies our explanation, and we will never know. So I'm not going to say that it was a love triangle, people turning on each other. I won't say that it was the Russian government doing a hit job. I think something truly, truly strange and otherworldly overcame them. I think it was a compelling supernatural force of some kind. And when I say supernatural, I don't mean God, I don't mean ghosts, I don't mean Bigfoot. I just mean something beyond human understanding, outside of what we consider to be natural.
Well said.
I always do.
I agree with you.
All right. All right. Thanks for watching. Of course, True Crime Tuesday next week. Stay safe. Make good decisions. Don't design under bizarre circumstances. And Kendra?
Don't go hiking in the Russian wilderness or know any secrets that the non-existent KGB could murder you for.
And don't get yourself true crimed.
That too.